It is time for the Taranis case mod. I've been sitting on this project for what feels like months, and it's time to do it, and we're going to do it right now. Let's go. Alright, so many of you know, and the video for this is right there, but it's time to make this happen. Yeah, this. Freaking awesome. So I just want to go over some of the parts that we're going to need, some of the new components, that kind of stuff. I'll run into some of the tools that we'll use, and there might be some that I'm missing right now, but there's that. One thing that's pretty important that I want to go into before anything else, let me fire this on. So with the radio on, I want to check the SWR of this antenna, and I also want to show you before we get into that how to check it, so that when we fire this radio back on, if there's something wrong, we don't burn it out. We can be in the mode to test it before any of that. So what we want to do is push and hold menu, push and hold page, push and hold page, push and hold page 3 times. That brings us to this page. This is the analog test. And I don't know why they're calling it RAS. This is really SWR, or standing wave ratio. I'm not sure what the acronym for this RAS is, but this is kind of stupid. Notice it's reading 1. That's a perfect reading. What RAS or SWR is a reading of standing wave ratio. It's the energy that's sent out to the antenna and the amount that's reflected back. You want 1-to-1. So this means that the radio is sending out full power through the antenna and nothing is coming back. So that's good. That's what we want. Now if I hold this antenna, you'll notice that number drastically goes up, 16. So that means it's sending power out and it's being reflected back into the radio, and that's gonna heat up your front end amplifier and you could burn that out. So that's the reading we want here, and I see it's up at 2, now it's up at 1, now it's 0. So 0 or 1 is about the best readings you're gonna get. Turn that back on so you can see it. So that's that. The other thing that I'm gonna do, exit out of that, is I'm gonna go ahead into a mode where I can shut that antenna off. So I'm just gonna hit menu, and I'm gonna run down to crossfire, and I'm gonna select that model. So now that I'm in the crossfire, obviously what that does is that will turn on my crossfire, but what that also does is it turns off my antenna. I have that set up in the menu to have that off. So if you do not have crossfire set up or anything else in the JR module bay and have your antenna shut off, this is how to do it. We're gonna tap menu, we're gonna tap to page 2, and then we're gonna scroll down to internal RF, which is right here. Internal RF, we want to turn that off, and that shuts the antenna radio off. This will give you a little bit of time to get back into the radio and check it out before you just turn the thing on and power it up and start looking for the other stuff. So that's, if you want to do that, I don't highly suggest it. You could, whatever. I'm doing this just for the sake of doing this because I'm recording it, and I don't know how long this thing's gonna be turned on before we check it. So that's how to turn that off if you need to. Now that that's done, we can exit out. So now I want to show you some of the components that we're going to be adding to this, and that might help. This here is a 36 millimeter speaker, and to install that you need the 36 millimeter. This is a 3D printed part out of, I believe this is PETG. And the way this works is this gets glued into the new case, and then this sits right in here, and then we can also glue this into here. So that's that. The other thing we're gonna need is, this is an SMA to an SMA. We're gonna cut this. We are interested in this half of it, not this half. And I'll go into how long to cut this to and how long to strip it back and all that later. We're gonna need a removable antenna. This is the stock antenna off of a Taranis X9D special edition. So same antenna, but once this mod is done, then we can use any antenna. I just picked this one up because it was cheap and available. The other thing that we're gonna want is a 3D printed part. or you can use a prop adapter or something like that, but we want something that will hold this antenna just like that. And screw that guy down, and then this can fit inside of the top of the transmitter case. Just to give you an idea what that looks like. So the reason we want to do something like this is because if not, this is just going to flop around in there, even like this. So with this guy here, we can put that on and then clip it in place. I'm not going to do it right now because I still have to cut and strip this, and I want it loose out in my hand. The other thing I've done is I've picked up new buttons for the new menu buttons. I picked up a whole new screen, and I've got the whole new sticker system for the transmitter. So there's that. And some of the tools I'm going to be using, just your standard set of wire cutters, scissors, a little pair of wire strippers. We're going to need some hex wrenches, and the other thing that we're going to want is a hot glue gun. So there might be more that we need, but this is what I've got in advance, and I will show you if there's anything else that I use. So the first thing I am going to do is I am going to prep this case. So after your case has been painted, the one issue that you might run into is your buttons. So I took just a small file and I filed these off camera. Just a round file, and that was able to take out any of the extra paint that sits in these buttons. So the way these guys work here is there's two little knobs, top and bottom, right there, and then inside of the case you've got two little, there you go, right there, you got two little nubs that they clip right onto. So we clip that, and they're supposed to stay. I know from previous experience that these don't. So I think what I might do just to hold them there is just give it a little dab of hot glue, as that is easily removable, and I just need it to hold them in place so I can put the main board on. So I think at one point or another you guys are going to see me install some new plugs out here, because I need new plugs out here. So hopefully you're into that, because I do a lot. I think showing you guys just mini quad stuff is doing you a disservice. So we're gonna place that guy there, and we're gonna grab this guy here and place this right here. And you could probably use super glue or whatever. I like hot glue for this. It should hold, and it is removable. Hot glue, CA or super glue, that's a permanent thing. And with how freaking awesome this came out, I want it to be reversible. So hot glue it is. I'm just gonna go ahead and put a little dab right here. And another little dab right here. And once it's in place, we move on to the other one. Okay. All right, while we're waiting for that to dry, I'm gonna take this. So this guy, there's our focus. So next I want to grab this guy, and the way this works is this, as you can see, it slides right over this whole speaker outfit there, and then this guy sits right there. So what I want to do is put a nice little bead all the way around this, stick it down. And the nicer a bead we get on this, the more sealed it's going to get, the better the sound we're going to get out of it. So this guy, just like that. Give it a little twist and a press. And the speaker is going to be installed with the 2 points down. So we're going to place that right about there. So when installing this, we want to make sure that we don't get any glue onto this speaker ring, and there's like a little paper ring that runs around this that's just going to fit flush onto this inner ring here. My suggestion when we do this is to place this here like that, and then I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue all the way around it, and just a little bit, just enough to hold it in place and to seal it. Not the prettiest of jobs, but it doesn't need to be. You will not see it after this. When I was originally going to do some custom stickers, I never got around to it. And these will easily pull off if we need to. And these guys, we want to make sure that we line up and pop in place. Just not like that. Just like that. So that's the front of the case prepped, the back of the case. There's really not much to do. We can remove those guys, and we can place our stickers on top, and that's pretty much it for the back. And if you're wondering which goes where, the SH goes to the right and the SF goes to the left. And these guys just kind of sit right, there's a little hollow here, and they just sit right in this hollow. Right up to the edge of the case. Just like that. And for those of you who have painted and then not redone the stickers, the key to making something change from looking great to looking amazing is these small little details. It might not seem like much, but that's what separates a project like this from every other one, as most people will not do this. So I do this. All right, so there's that. We can now set this guy off to the side. Like, I mean, look at that. That looks freaking awesome already. All right. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to start stripping parts off of this. So boss cam comes right off. We can pull the crossfire out of the module bay. This guy we don't need to remove. We're going to remove this bar all in one. We don't need that camera. We're going to go ahead and remove this mount. If you're interested in this mount or where to get it, I'll put a link right there. And to remove this, this is a 2.5 millimeter hex key. And this is the same hex key that you would use to just remove this guy if you needed to. I'm just putting that back so it's one piece off to the side. So the next thing that we're going to want to do, and this is imperative for this project, remove the battery. The reason being is there's a couple of ribbon cables inside of this transmitter that if you do not remove the battery and you undo those ribbon cables, it will smoke the radio. So you want that out, definitely. So once we get the battery and the module out, we need a Phillips head screwdriver. I'm sorry I didn't show this earlier. This is a number 1 Phillips. And there are 6 screws. We got one here, one there, one there, one there, one there, and one there. Just go ahead and pull these out completely. Okay, once you've got those screws removed, go ahead and make sure all your switches are facing backwards. The reason this is necessary is because we're going to remove them all, and when we place them all back, we don't want to have to take the radio apart again to redo them. And the way I take this apart, I just kind of grab it here and push this way with my thumb, and I'm holding the radio basically at the front, and I just kind of pinch here and push, and then she comes right apart. If you've done this before, it is a little easier. So once you've broken open the shell, go very easy, because there are wires connecting the 2 halves. So when you're pulling this apart, you want to make sure that these shoulder switches, and I'll show you these shoulder switches here, these guys go with the front half, and you want to make sure that these potentiometers stay with the back half, and that's how we do that. So now that we've got it separated like this, we can remove these guys and separate the 2 halves. So I'm going to do that here. This is your backboard. It is, don't touch this stuff, especially right here where this antenna is. If you touch this, this is why a lot of people are blowing out this backboard. So before I get further into this, let's go into some safety things here. So anytime you're touching this backboard, I highly suggest wearing a ground strap. This is just a strap, goes around your wrist, and it's got some metal touches right there, and I've got this hooked to a ground. So I'm going to pull these cases at half. To do that, I'm pulling that forwards this way. There's this little bar, and as you can see, this ribbon cable comes right out after that's done. We're going to do the back half last. So now that that's done, I don't need this. So now that I have the new case and the old case next to one another, we're going to start by removing the gimbals, installing them here, and then move forward from there. So to do that, we want to remove the 3 molexes that these guys come with. So I've got one down here. This is a giant one. Got a smaller one here, and then one to its left. So we're going to pull these out. Some of these might give you a little trouble. Just kind of grab them, and I just give them a little wiggle back and forth. As you saw, you can use a screwdriver and just kind of, I just twisted, I didn't pry. So now that that's done, we can remove these 4 screws here. These are 2.5 millimeter. Okay. Once that's done, we can push the gimbal out. And we're gonna go right into the new case. Okay, that's one. So next, and for those of you who are really paying attention, we do not need to remove those molexes. We can go straight into these guys, and this might actually be the easier way to do it, is to remove these trim pots with the gimbal. So we're gonna do that now. These are tiny little screws. This #1 Phillips head does do them pretty well, so there's that. And these guys just come out like this. And the way this works is it's just one giant switch that comes out like that. So this guy fits right in there. Press fit in place. Yeah. While you can remove these with, I think it's just easier not to. Yeah, I'm seeing that this is going to be much easier to remove the molexes like I've shown. Trying to do it all at once is not going to save you much time, and it's just going to make things a lot more fiddly. So when we're tightening these down, we're only going into plastic, so kind of want to go easy with it. Just go finger tight with those, and then we want to check that we get an audible click once that's installed. And then once that's all set, we can go ahead and plug in to it, just like that. And then this can safely move out of the way. Next, we're going to do the bottom trim pot. And you want to kind of keep this board orientated in the same direction. If you don't, left will become right, and right will become left, and up will become down, and down will become up. So pay attention to how this goes. And I know we in the mini quad realm don't really use these, but and check that we got our audible clicks. We're good. Okay, now I'm going to repeat that entire process for this gimbal. Okay, there's the audible clicks. God, this thing's going to look good. Okay, this next step, we have all of our switches we got to pull out. And we can do this all as one unit, or we can pull off these guys and do it piece by piece. All right, so you will notice off camera, I went ahead and labeled all these. The way I labeled them is from left to right. This is 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 8 is my shoulder switch, 1 is my shoulder switch. This is going to be a lot easier doing it this way than removing all these and doing it piece by piece. I'm just trying to speed through this. I want to go ahead and fire up my soldering iron, because I want to remove these 2 leads to that. And I'm just going to go and apply heat to the lead and pull on the wire. Going to remove these switches. The other thing that I did here is I pulled all the TPU off except for these tall switches. So this should be a lot easier to remove this stuff. So we just remove this nut. And again, as we're pulling these stuff apart, make sure to flip your switch into the correct orientation, because we're going to flip it into the center, loosen it, and then flip it back. And then flip it in correct orientation. Now these switches here, they have this black portion here that just kind of sits on top. So take that off, put that to the side. Unfortunately, this does not fit over the trim pot. So that's going to be an issue later tightening. Okay, so that's one side done. If you can't get it, a small screwdriver will help. This is a 1/8 inch straight blade screwdriver. Just enough to get it started. And now on these, you'll notice I just dropped it. They have that same black piece that the other one does, and this one stayed attached, but this one came undone, so we gotta find that, which is right here. And the last 2. Orientate our switch in the correct position. Grab that little black piece of plastic that fell off. Put that to the side. And our final switch. As you can see, this gets to be a wiring nightmare if you do not label your stuff. Okay, so that is all the switches removed. And again, you can cut these zip ties and pull them off and do them little by little. I'm just doing this all as one. So there's that. This power switch I might be able to do. Okay, so I'm removing this center one to the power switch, and I'm going to pull that off next. This is held in place with 4 screws. Okay, so to pull this guy out, put it to the side. We're going to take our power switch out and move that to the side. And then lastly, we have this guy here. This looks like a 10mm nut. So this is a 7mm. Go ahead and pull this guy out. Once you get that, we can unscrew this lanyard mount. Once we get that, we can go directly to the new case with it. Because this is painted, it might give us a little issue getting that started. Just run it all the way down to the bottom. And the way this sits is we want it orientated so the hole is up and down. Just like that. Then we can go ahead and place our nut back onto it. If you are worried about holding this thing absolutely straight, you can put a screwdriver through it and twist it and hold the screwdriver in place. And then when you apply force of the ratchet, that thing's not going anywhere. For this part, I'm gonna add a short extension to it. This is a 3-inch extension. This way I can get to this without disturbing anything I've already placed in there. Tighten it down and make sure this guy is straight. Again, there's your screwdriver trick to reorientate that to the straight position. And that's nice and easy. Place your power button on this up, just like that. We can place our power button. We want to make sure that this is in the correct orientation to feed into that. There's a little slot right there. We want to make sure that this feeds right into like that. Okay, once you get a screw in place, check to make sure that your power switch doesn't work, and this one does. Now we can safely run the rest of them in. Okay, once you get all 4 in, you can run them down tight. I'm just kind of going with the X pattern here to make sure it sits flush. Just like that. Once you're complete, again, check to make sure your power button works. We're good. While we're here, we want to install this onto this speaker. All right, so the next thing that we want to do once we get the power board in is we want to solder on our speaker leads. We want to pay special attention to positive and negative. You can hook these up with the wrong polarity. And on these speakers, if we look here, unfortunately it's not going to show up on camera, but there's a little plus stamped in right here. There you go. You just barely see it right there. I cover the light. So we want to put the red to the right and the brown to the left as a speaker sitting in there like this. So to do this, I'm going to pre-tin the speaker just a pinch. And so I'm gonna cut these and re-pre-tin. We want to use care with these wires. They did not use a nice silicone coated wire, so these are like a plastic coated, and these unfortunately will melt if we hit them with too much heat, so just be very aware of that. So we want to get in and do what we need to do and get out of there quickly. Okay, so that's pre-tinned. And like I said before, we want to put our red wire to the right and our ground wire to the left. So just use care when soldering these. I touched up against these wires for a second and it kind of melted the coating. So just be aware that that's a thing. They did not use good wire, and you can easily screw this up and show up bare wire. This looks like it'll be okay, so I'm gonna roll with it. And if it's not, then I'm gonna have to replace this. Whether that's pull out the wires and put new, or just cut them short and solder them and shrink tube them, whatever. But carrying on, the next thing I want to do, because the screen and this front board are next, I'm going to go ahead and install the new front cover. So I want to clean up any stringing I have left over from the hot glue. And I'm just going to go around this and just going to rub that quick. So this guy, you just peel this backing, and this is just going to sit right inside of here. And that slots in very nice. Guys out of the way. That should be good. It's installed. So next, there are 4 screws in this, one on each corner. We're going to pull those out. Okay, and I take that back. There is a 5th screw right here in the top center. It's fairly easy missed because you got the wiring over it. Unless, of course, you did not do this the lazy way and pulled all these wires. So now we can remove this. Be very careful because there is a ribbon cable down the bottom. And this whole screen comes right out like that. So now we can take this and move this whole unit into this. This is the time if you need to clean your screen, go ahead and do that. I don't, so I'm going to place this guy right in here, straight down, and run our 5 screws in. And this is actually called the main board. This is probably the most expensive board in this radio, just because it's got the screen on it and there's that. But most people, if they screw this radio up, they screw up the backboard. And we'll get into that in a little bit, and some of the reasoning as to why I'm about to do what I'm going to do. Okay, once that's in, where your switches, we want to go ahead and test that we have a nice tactile button press for all our buttons. If you are good with those, and I'm okay with these. These are way better than these, but whatever. These are kind of, this one's mush. These two are great, this one's mush. But it is what it is. So I'm okay with that. Flip this back over, and you can go ahead and plug in the power board. Make sure you got both sides seated. Just like that. Move our switches out of the way. Take our gimbals and plug those into the main board. And make sure that's seated all the way. And then we can plug in our lower trim pot. Remember, we had already plugged in the up and down trim pots. Go ahead and get our other gimbal plugged in. And seat it all the way, and then our other trim pot. Okay, so that's the gimbals completely installed. We want to make sure this wiring is kind of pushed down out of the way so we don't crimp them when we put the sides of the case together, but we'll get more into that in a little bit. But our trim pot is number 4. So that guy's going to go in first. Now remember, this had the black plastic that went over it like that. Also going to remove our labels as we put these in because these are going to be a pain in the ass later. So this is number 4. And the wiring goes down. It goes right there. Alright, so our trim pot is in place, squared up, and I'm going to take this screwdriver and being very careful not to nick the paint or stab myself in the finger. I'm just going to go and kind of use this to rotate it tight. Just like that, because this tool will not fit over that trim pot. So once that's set, I'm going to go and put my trim pot back on, and I'm going to put it all the way to the left and put the knob all the way to the left, so this way when we turn it all the way to the right, it's lined up. Then our next switch is our third. I'm going to take that guy. And again, this guy as well has this shoulder piece. And this kind of just fits on like so. If you notice, it's got a little shoulder piece there that will fit right around this switch. Fits like that. This guy fits in like that, and we grab our cover. Okay, same thing here. I'm going to use the straight bladed screwdriver, stick it in one of the slots, and then just going to use it to rotate. Watch your fingers, because it's very easy to stab them doing this. It doesn't need to be super tight. That's it. Just make sure your switch is orientated in the way you want it. So if you notice one of these guys and are wondering what the heck it is, this came off of one of these shoulder switches. The guy's right here, so just put that off to the side. Go with the next switch down. This is switch number 2. And this guy's just going to sit right in there like that. Same thing here. Go ahead and hold the switch in position and just kind of give this a little turn with your screwdriver. Which sure your switches are orientated in the direction you want them. Okay, so that's that side done for now. Okay, with all these wires, what they did previously is they used this post here for this trim pot to hold this zip tie and all this wiring down together. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove the top of this trim pot to access that, to place this back down. I should have noticed this before, but okay, so we just pop this guy off, pop this guy out. Now we can access this post and just place our zip tie over it like that. There it is. Okay, that's one side done. Same thing here. So that is the front half complete. Now we're going to move to the rear half. Damn, that looks good. So when working with the back half, we're going to wear our grounding straps. I'm going to put that on in a moment. We want to be very careful not to touch this portion of the antenna, and I'll get you a nice close-up view of what we're looking at there. To see exactly what's going on. So when looking at the back, as you can see, this is our antenna. This is what we're going to be working with, and we do not want to touch. We don't want to touch that at all. We've got right here is the ground, and then right here is the positive lead. It's the center lead. So we want to be very careful not to muck with that. What I am going to do, usually you just hit that with a soldering iron and then pull this whole antenna system off, and then you can pull this guy out. You can see it's glued in there, and then this whole unit just pulls right out. I'm gonna do something a little bit different. A lot of people do that and they'll burn out this backboard and they'll end up replacing the backboard. The reason I'm doing something different is because I know this backboard is good and I don't want to screw stuff up, so I'm gonna leave it as is. I'm gonna pull all the switches out. Backboard staying, antenna staying. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna buy the non-working radio and flip all the guts and place it into this. So this back piece and this board, all this is good, and then I'll just replace all the rest of the components and then sell it as a working unit. So I'm not gonna pull this backboard out. There's no sense. If it's not broken, don't fix it. So that's gonna stay. I have a new backboard and I'm going to place it in here, and we're going to go over that stuff as we do it though. Okay, so first step is to get into this. Okay, so here's our backboard. We want to be very careful of these pins and a lot of this upright material. We don't want anything to bend or what have you. The other thing we want to be very cautious of is right here. Here is our antenna. Our antenna is going to go, and as you can see, it's pre-tinned, so we don't really need to worry about it. We want to clean up the inside of this. This is just your standard X-Acto knife with your regular run-of-the-mill blade. And all I'm doing is going around the inside of this and cutting out any paint that is inside, preventing our items from getting to their home or wherever they sit. So there's primer buildup, there's paint buildup. Alright, so that should help. Put that guy off to the side. And see if this works now. I want these guys to kind of sit flush. See what else is going on here is this guy is not quite square to this hole. So I'm just going to pull it into place like that. And press fit. It looks like we might have it there. We flip it to the back and we see all our screws line up. So if that's the case, you can go ahead and remove some of these screws and start feeding them into place on this board. Okay, so there are 6 screws in this. What I'm going to do is pull these guys out. In the corner here, this is the LED and this is the charge port. Now this charge port, because I'm using a LiPo, doesn't need to be connected, but I will connect it just in case. There we go. So now that those two are out, I can take this charge port out and place this guy in here. I'm not placing that with any permanency right yet because I'm going to have to get down to this LED in a few moments. And I'm going to take one more screw out of this. This is held in place with 6 screws. I'm only going to use 5. And the reason I'm going to use 5 is just to hold that backboard in place while I acquire parts to finish it. And I could see you getting by with probably just 2 screws on this backboard. But so next I'm going to grab up in the corner, and we want to be careful here. This molex is very tight, and there's, speaking about screws, there really should be some screws up at the top of this board to prevent this thing from curling as it's doing as I'm trying to get these guys out of here. Okay, so there's that. You do the same over here. Again, be very cautious not to touch that antenna. So what happens is the static electricity builds up, and eventually you'll end up burning it out. Okay, next I want to remove the TPU off these shoulders. Maybe. Okay, so we got the switch and the pot out. The way this works is the pot goes. The pot just slides into its relative home like that. The switch slides right into its hole there. And this is a momentary, so we want this facing backwards. Just like that. Take our cover. There's no square slot or anything that this holds it in place, so it's just a matter of figuring out where you want it and twist the whole unit so it sits there. And that's good where it is. Once you get that, you can plug it into the backboard. Nice click. Goes on way easier than it does come off. So there's that. That's one side done. Also, keep in mind you want to be able to get through here with a ratchet to remove these. That's going to be next after we get this TPU off. The thing you want to be careful of is once you get this off there, you don't want to be squeezing the pliers because you'll actually squeeze your finger and that would suck. Okay, sorry that was a little off camera. Loosen this guy. Make sure our switch is orientated in the proper position. Like that. And once we get that off, we can go right into the new case. Screw that right in place. There is a plastic piece on this like most of our others. But if you're just moving it directly, it doesn't really matter because we're not taking it off. I'm just taking this guy on there. There's that. Go ahead and plug her in. And our pot just slides right. You can see this slot here. This just slides right in there. Push it all the way into the corner like that. And we can place our TPU back on the switch. And this is not something we want to take on and off because it's pushing the switch inside of the housing. As you can see, it takes a bit of force to get them off. So let's just kind of put them on there and be done with them. Went ahead and grabbed, this is I failed to mention before, but this is a 1/4-inch drive ratchet and a 7mm nut. And we're gonna go ahead and pull this guy. There's 2 of these, so pull the nut off. And this will pull this whole back bar off. So once we got that, there are a couple metal flares that are attached to this, so we don't want to lose those. Going right into the new transmitter case. So pop that in there, and then grab your nuts and put them on. Now, because these are in a tight area, I just pull the ratchet off and just spin them on by hand. And that allows us to not cross thread them. Okay, once we get those started, we can adjust our ratchet and run them back all the way. Just get these as snug. You don't need to get too crazy. These are lock nuts. And this is gonna look hot. Wow, I'm upset that these don't fit. All right, so our charge port, we can go ahead and plug that in. We're gonna have to find an LED at some point or another. Be careful when we're plugging this charge port in. There's nothing underneath this board to keep it from bending down. And we need it not to break because this is where we're gonna plug our cables into. All right, next we need to do the antenna. So we need our antenna, wire strippers, and some nips. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to measure and cut this cable. This is just an SMA extension. This is a RG316, and we're gonna measure it from the base of the SMA down to 3.33 inches. And I did not do the math on that. I can, full credit goes out to Alex Grieve. I believe that's his YouTube channel there. He's got a good video on how to do this mod in particular. So I can't take credit for coming up with this part on my own. So full credit is due to Alex. So I'm gonna zero this out and make sure I'm at inches. I'm gonna go to 3.33 inches, which is right about 3.33 inches. And again, this is gonna be tough to get like exact. Oh. And there I go, getting it exact. All right, whatever. So now this guy is gonna go right about there. And I'm gonna go ahead and mark this with a marker. So I know right where to cut it. And of course, marker doesn't work very well on this coating. So, live dangerously. So I'm gonna live dangerously and measure once and cut once. There we go. No turning back now. So I failed to mention that we want the threaded side on the 3.33 side. So this is cut to one full wavelength at 3.33 inches. And for those of you that need to know the millimeters on that, I can zero this out and go back. All right, close enough. That's 84.5 millimeters. So if you need to know what it is in millimeters, that's what it is. We need to strip just a pinch of this back. And I'm gonna put this right here. It looks like I'm gonna strip back, and I'm not measuring this, so I apologize for that. I'm gonna strip back about, I'll measure it after I make the cut here. Making this splice with the 16 gauge section here. So now I'm gonna take all this ground wire like that, kind of coil this up. Make sure I get all these strands, and I'm sorry, this is probably wildly out of focus, but this is very small work here. Okay, so I'm gonna put this here, and I'm gonna pre-tin the end of this. And that's just the ground wire that I'm gonna be pre-tinning. Just to make this a little easier to work with. So what I've done is that now what I'm going to do is I need to pull some of the inner coating off of the centerpiece here. And this is going to go just like this, right on there. And I'll try to get you a closer picture once I get that pulled off. And I think how I'm gonna do this actually is with the X-Acto knife. So what I ended up doing is, as you can see, this little nub here, that's your ground. That's all the exterior shielding. Then there's the white shielding. Let's get you a little closer. There you go. And then I just used the little nippers and just kind of walked them all the way around and then pulled that white sheeting off the top. Then I went ahead after that and pre-tinned the center element. So that is ready to be soldered on. I'm just kind of aligning these two bits into alignment with, let I'm sorry, this is shaky. I'm doing this all handheld. So right there in the center of the screen is where we want this. So this is gonna sit right like this. So that's where the ground is gonna go. And then that center element is gonna go right where it is now. And I'll get you a better picture of this once I set this down right here. So I want these just to be a little bit closer. I think I gotta do this under heat. So this is gonna sit right about like that. And again, I'm gonna heat this up and get the ground a little bit closer to the center element. So this is pre-tinned. I'm not gonna add any more heat than I have to. And I'm gonna call this pre-tinned. So what I need to do is install this into the radio first. If you can see it, there we go. So you can see there's a couple of notches. And then the top of this radio, there's a wider angle here and then a narrower angle here. This guy slots right in the top. And if you twist it and push it, fits 100% in. I like this guy a lot. This is definitely the one I'm going to use, and I am definitely gluing this in place. So now that our glue gun is ready to rock, I'm just going to give a little bit of glue around the bottom here. And this will kind of just push right into place once I get it in there. Now this guy will set right in place like that. Now we can bring this around and bend this into place here. We're also going to be gluing this to the mount here once I get this orientated into the position that I need it, which will be something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this guy in place. Now the trick is to get in here and to hit this with enough heat that it solders this wire in place and does not melt these pads. So I'm going to go and cut this ground just a little bit shorter, not much, just like a millimeter. And then I believe I want to give it just a twist to relieve some of the strain that it's going to put on this otherwise. Okay, so the ground side is a little bit more robust, so I'm going to hit that side first and then just lightly tap the other side. Okay, that's all we need for the ground. And now now that that's in, I can put the antenna on, and I don't know if you can see, but I'm not very happy with this antenna mounting solution. This whole antenna sticks up. I want to find something that maybe puts this whole antenna down further so that I can get this antenna to sit flush like that. So if you know of a better 3D printed solution than this, I'm definitely all ears. That should be everything. Now we're going to take our ribbon cables. These go up underneath this little plastic bit, blue side up. Push this pretty much all the way till it goes. There's only about 2 millimeters of blue that show. And then just cinch that in place. And that should be good. As you can see, there's maybe 4 mil after that's cinched down. Same thing here. Take this from getting into that area. Okay, so that's those two. Just make sure these are really cinched down in place. go ahead and loosen these shoulder bolts up just a little bit so that the covers will fit together. And now we can place the halves back together. I don't know why that's... All right. So, with that, I'm going to take one single screw and just put it in a corner over here. And the reason for one single screw is because I want to test this radio and make sure all my switches are in the proper angles. And I also want to make sure that antenna is good. So remember, when I fire this up, we should be on crossfire, which means the module bay is active. We're not going to put that in yet. So we can safely check our switches first, is what I'm getting at. Let's clean up a little bit here. So we're going to plug this guy in. And flip it over. Oh my God, this thing looks good. So I've got no speaker. All right, let's see what the antenna is doing, see if that's right. Antenna problem. I know. Okay, so the radio is telling me we got an antenna problem. And we have no sound. For whatever reason, this side, I'm getting and the new side, I'm getting an antenna warning, and my speaker doesn't work. If I use the old backboard with the old antenna system, everything works as it should. Okay. Yeah, let's test it.
Welcome to OpenTX. Throttle warning. Switch warning.
Alright, well, RAS is at 1 or 0. Okay. And we gotta put the crossfire in. Okay. So there's some things that I need to fix. This particular button, while you can still hear it, it's like mush. These over here are excellent. So I gotta fix that. That's gonna drive me nuts. Especially the one button you hit as often as you do, the menu button. So I gotta fix that. Of course the trim switches work great. I never use those. And obviously we gotta get the back done. So I gotta find out what is wrong with this backboard, and I am gonna call Loft Hobbies and see. I mean, I ordered the thing months ago, and see if they have any kind of warranty or whatever, what they say, because it's a bit odd to me that both the speaker and the and the antenna is giving me a warning. I mean, I would thought that, you know, maybe the antenna's bad. Maybe my soldering sucked. Maybe I burned out the board. But why the speaker too? I don't know. That to me is very odd. So I'm gonna see what they say, and you guys will find out how their customer service is likely. So let me put this guy where it goes, which is right here. Okay, so some things went right, some things went wrong. Put that guy in place. Well, this half looks sexy as fuck. Wow. I'm upset it's only half. But wow. Just wow. Yeah, so I'm upset I didn't get the entire project done, but the half that did get done looks freaking awesome. I wanted to do this in one video for you guys. It's clear that that's not going to happen. It's unfortunate, but damn, that looks sexy. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, click that thumbs up button. And if you haven't done it already, go ahead and punch that subscribe button, because you only get to do it once and it's fun. Catch you later. Peace.